Have you ever been so shaken by a film that it lingers in your mind for days, weeks, or even years? If so, you know the feeling. Scenes replay themselves, beckoning you to uncover deeper meanings. For many cinephiles, Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation does just that, creating an unsettling experience that won't let go. This film's lingering power partly stems from its themes of guilt and intrusion, universal anxieties that transcend decades. Whether it's the hum of a tape recorder or Hackman's wordless reactions, the movie keeps us on edge, reflecting our own fears about being watched or misunderstood. Recently, Coppola broke decades of silence about his creative process on this 1970s gem, focusing on Gene Hackman's electrifying portrayal of surveillance expert Harry Caul. These new insights not only change how we see the film, but also highlight Hackman's quiet power, an intensity that shaped one of the most enduring thrillers of its era. Coppola confesses that making The Conversation felt both freeing and terrifying, yet the moral questions behind wiretapping gave him pause, an unease Hackman perfectly captured. Released between Coppola's sweeping Godfather films, The Conversation took a radically different path. Instead of grand gangster drama, it offered an intimate dive into paranoia and surveillance, subjects that still resonate in our age of digital leaks and privacy concerns. At the heart is Hackman's performance, so subdued that it feels startlingly real. According to Coppola, the film's making was deeply personal and, at times, emotionally charged. In rewatching the film, audiences often find themselves mesmerized by Hackman's subtle performance. Each hushed scene invites speculation. Is Harry paranoid or justifiably cautious? This tension draws us into his world, urging us to scrutinize every detail. After The Godfather dominated Hollywood, everyone expected Coppola's next film to be equally large in scope. Instead, he chose a story about a solitary eavesdropper. Studio executives worried audiences wouldn't follow such a restrained concept. Yet Coppola was determined, convinced that Hackman, fresh off his own Oscar win, could deliver the haunting introspection the role demanded. The production design mirrored Harry's mental state: tight interiors, muted lighting, the ever-present hum of electronics. Coppola aimed to make viewers feel watched. Hackman's anxious body language amplified this sense of creeping dread. Coppola recently detailed the pivotal first meeting with Hackman. Expecting hesitation, he was surprised to find the actor enthralled by Harry Caul's cautious nature. Within minutes, Coppola sensed a unique undercurrent in Hackman, something quiet yet potent. Once filming began, Coppola recalls seeing Hackman so immersed in Harry's psyche that he barely recognized the actor he'd hired. It was quietly thrilling, shifting from the sprawling world of The Godfather to a claustrophobic, unsettled Coppola. He worried whether Hackman would adjust to such a psychologically intense role, but Hackman embraced it fully, often isolating himself between takes to sustain Harry's uneasy aura. Coppola grew concerned, fearing this solitude might harm Hackman personally, but soon realized the actor was deliberately cultivating Harry's mindset, stoking the paranoia that defined every scene. Crew members noticed Hackman's minimal breaks between scenes. At lunch, he'd keep to himself, occasionally reflecting on Harry's inner turmoil. Coppola says these moments underscored the film's emotional demands. Known for meticulous direction, Coppola initially resisted deviations from the script. Hackman, however, quietly inserted pauses or shifts in dialogue, capturing Harry's growing dread. One key moment featured Harry's silent breakdown instead of scripted dialogue. Coppola was stunned to see how Hackman's trembling gestures conveyed more terror than words ever could. Over time, Coppola learned to trust Hackman's instincts. Realizing these nuanced changes intensified the film's emotional depth. Some worried Hackman's intensity might overshadow others, but co-stars like John Cazale thrived under his example. Coppola credits Hackman for setting a tone of understated realism, pushing everyone towards subtle, character-driven exchanges. For Hackman, The Conversation demanded a raw vulnerability that was hard to leave behind when the cameras stopped. He confessed to Coppola that he sometimes felt trapped in Harry's anxiety, uncertain how to snap back to normal. Coppola offered breaks, but Hackman refused, insisting he needed to see this through. That commitment, while admirable, also revealed the potential strain of becoming a character consumed by paranoia. Once filming ended, Coppola revisited footage and found himself astonished by Hackman's commitment. Rather than boasting, he speaks of it reverently, sensing that he'd witnessed an actor tapping into something profoundly personal. Off-screen, Hackman mirrored Harry's preference for solitude. He avoided Hollywood parties, rarely gave interviews, and often spent downtime alone. Yet those who worked with him saw a supportive mentor willing to help younger actors. Coppola recounts an incident where a nervous newcomer couldn't remember his lines. Hackman calmly coached him through it. That genuine kindness, paired with Hackman's tendency for privacy, made him an enigma, at once distant and deeply empathetic. A lesser performer might have opted for theatrics in a role fraught with moral conflict. Hackman resisted that path, letting Harry's paranoia simmer. Coppola believes this choice allows viewers to share Harry's unease, feeling complicit in his darkest suspicions. Over the years, some labeled Hackman difficult because of his intensity on set. Coppola now debunks that myth, explaining Hackman demanded authenticity rather than indulging in diva-like behavior. If something felt off, he'd speak up, often revealing blind spots in the script. Far from egotistical, Hackman sought to honor the film's truth. Coppola cites a day when Hackman humbly admitted he wasn't capturing Harry's essence, asking for direction rather than dictating his own terms. The conversation script was intentionally lean. Hackman trimmed or replaced certain lines with silence. Coppola was initially uneasy, but soon realized how these gaps gave the audience space to project their own anxieties. When the film premiered in 1974, critics applauded Hackman's subtlety. Hackman, however, found it unsettling to watch himself inhabit Harry's creeping dread. He feared viewers accustomed to high-intensity thrillers would dismiss such restraint. Coppola reassured him, predicting the performance's timeless resonance. Today, the conversation is lauded precisely for its quiet tension, with Hackman's portrayal seen as a masterclass in psychological nuance. Although dwarfed by The Godfather's fame, the conversation earned critical acclaim, proving that a solitary man's crisis could captivate as powerfully as any epic saga. Hackman's performance was the linchpin, demonstrating that a single internal struggle can rivet audiences. Coppola often remarks that Hackman's approach changed his own directing style. By embracing quieter, more suggestive storytelling, Coppola discovered new ways to build tension without large set pieces. Hackman's gift for conveying turmoil through small gestures inspired Coppola to pare down dialogue, trusting the actor's subtle choices. This shift influenced the entire cast, who arrived each day ready to match Hackman's dedication. Many directors have tried to replicate the conversation's minimalist suspense, but few succeed without an actor willing to disappear into nuance. Coppola calls Hackman's devotion a gift that shaped not just this film, but an entire branch of psychological drama. As production neared its end, Watergate rattled the national conscience. The film's theme of surveillance seemed ripped from headlines. Hackman, already deeply invested in Harry's mindset, found these real-world parallels unnerving. Conversations on set blurred with the storyline, amplifying the sense of paranoia. Coppola observed that Hackman appeared to carry Harry Caul's anxiety offset, further binding actor to character. Hackman himself rarely trumpeted his own genius. In interviews, he'd modestly praise Coppola or the script. Coppola believes this humility was key to Hackman's approach. He never overshadowed the material, only deepened it. One night, Coppola invited Hackman to a quiet dinner, sensing the actor's emotional load. Over a simple meal, Hackman confessed that Harry's fear echoed his own discomfort with fame, exposing vulnerabilities he rarely confronted. Coppola realized how deeply Hackman had merged personal anxieties with Harry Caul's. This honesty forged a profound trust between them, shaping the final weeks of filming. Modern viewers still find the conversation alarmingly prescient. While technology has advanced, the dread of intrusions remains. Hackman's portrayal endures because his fear transcends eras, tapping into our universal unease about privacy. After the conversation, Coppola returned to more expansive narratives, yet he calls Hackman's portrayal a turning point. Far from the showy style of other 1970s stars, Hackman embodied a restrained realism that left a lasting mark on Hollywood. Coppola credits him with teaching him to value silence as much as dialogue, to let an actor's internal struggle speak volumes. It's a lesson Coppola carried into future projects. Coppola's insights also reveal how true artistry can spring from internal battles. Hackman channeled personal anxieties into Harry's guarded persona, giving the film its raw power. That sincerity is what makes the experience unforgettable. Decades later, the conversation still feels eerily relevant. Its themes of wiretapping and ethical responsibility mirror today's debates on digital privacy. Filmmakers cite its visual grammar, dim corridors, muffled sound design, as influential touchstones. Hackman's portrayal, free of melodrama, set a precedent for introspective, character-driven thrillers. To watch him as Harry Caul is to witness an actor unafraid of stillness, letting tension simmer beneath every gesture. Some scenes remain iconic. Harry hunched over audio reels, replaying fragments until they blur in his mind. Coppola notes how Hackman's tense posture conveyed profound isolation without a single spoken line, a triumph of visual storytelling. Coppola admits that Hackman's commitment to truth extended beyond acting. He challenged scenes that didn't align with the character's logic, pushing Coppola to refine the script. Initially, Coppola bristled at such critiques, but he realized Hackman's intent was never to dominate. It was to serve the film's integrity. That dynamic elevated the project from a simple thriller to a layered character study. The trust forged here shaped Coppola's subsequent collaborations, encouraging open dialogue with cast and crew. Rumors suggest Hackman found the role so draining that he swore off such total immersion. Though unverified, these whispers underscore the toll that genuine embodiment can exact on a performer. Often overshadowed by the Godfather saga, the conversation stands as a testament to creative risks. Coppola shrank his scope, focusing on a single man's unraveling psyche. Hackman poured his soul into Harry Caul, showing that grand spectacle isn't always necessary to leave a lasting impression. The film's reputation has grown through the decades, revered by film scholars and directors who see it as proof that tension can brew in the hush of a lonely apartment just as effectively as in epic gangster sagas. For Coppola, the conversation proved a smaller, introspective story could enthrall audiences. Hackman's dedication showed that intimate conflicts, when honestly portrayed, resonate just as deeply as grand spectacles. Though Hackman went on to star in many iconic roles, Unforgiven, Superman, Hoosiers, and more, the conversation remains a highlight in his filmography. It demanded a vulnerability that surprised even Hackman himself. He rarely spoke publicly about the intensity of the experience, but Coppola's fresh recollections confirmed the lasting personal impact. Hackman walked away from the film with a new understanding of how deeply art can cut into one's own psyche. Today, film students study the conversation's spare aesthetic, but they keep returning to Hackman's portrayal as the soul of its tension. His Harry Caul is a template for harnessing subtlety to create an almost unbearable sense of unease. Near wrap, the studio planned a celebratory party. Hackman declined, explaining to Coppola that after channeling such persistent anxiety, switching to a festive mood felt impossible. Some misread this as aloofness, but Coppola insists it was self-preservation. Hackman needed time to untangle himself from Harry Caul's solitude. Looking back, Coppola sees this as another example of Hackman's quiet integrity. He refused to fake exuberance when still gripped by the role's emotional weight. Coppola later summarized their collaboration by calling it one of his proudest achievements. The film dove headlong into human dread, culminating in Harry Caul's slow-motion implosion. Without Hackman, Coppola insists, it wouldn't have been the same. Decades after the film's release, Coppola observed how Hackman's portrayal offered a case study in long-form suspense. He points out that Harry Caul's unraveling was a slow burn that respected the audience's intelligence, never resorting to cheap tricks. This level of trust, Coppola believes, paved the way for the modern wave of psychologically driven dramas that prioritize atmosphere over spectacle. Critics have since praised the conversation for refining the language of tension, crediting Hackman's performance as the film's spiritual core, an embodiment of what can happen when an actor dares to confront his character's most unsettling truths. Critics and scholars still dissect Hackman's style in the conversation, noting how his restraint shifted audience expectations for a thriller. By choosing calm gestures over theatrical outbursts, Hackman heightened every subtle moment. This choice forever impacted the genre, reminding filmmakers that silence and stillness can be as riveting as any action scene. And so, if you find yourself haunted by Harry Caul's anxiety and reclusive ways, remember that Gene Hackman chose to inhabit those depths for the sake of truth. In doing so, he left behind a film that resonates powerfully across generations, a testament to the enduring allure of a character unraveling before our eyes. The conversation may not shout, but its reverberations remind us of cinema's ability to take us inside the darkest corners of a person's mind and keep us thinking long after the final frame.